Okay, it is a new moon, and as promised, we are doing a new video. This time around, we are talking about finding the off switch of suffering. This video is a continuation of the previous video, which was about the secret meaning of reincarnation. You might want to watch it. That way, this can sort of continue that discussion, because the model that I presented there, which shows you how reincarnation apparently works, at least according to the mysteries, that model also gives a clue as to how suffering arises and how it can be switched off, like as though it has an off switch. So in the last video, we talked about the magic circle and what that has to do with reincarnation. And of course, something about how it has to do with the endless round of suffering, going from life to life or going from existence to existence, where you are faced with challenges and tribulations, and it just seems to go on and on. It's one damn thing after another. And the magic circle can actually represent that. Okay, of course, but it represents much more than that. It essentially represents the ability to objectify. And when you sit or stand within your magic circle, you can envision that magic circle as a sort of mandala. It's a little universe unto itself where things are arising. Okay, and so it's kind of like a flower. You're sitting on a flower, and the various flower petals are the different phenomena that arise. And of course, around the edges of that flower, the petals are dying and crumbling away, but always from the center of the flower, the new, fresh growth is coming out. This is sort of what life is like. It just kind of keeps coming, even though around the edges it's dying and disappearing, and then perhaps being reborn, somehow going down below and recycling and coming back again, something like that, right? It's the circle of life. And so when you sit within your magic circle, you also encounter other magic circles out there in the world. This basically represents your ability to objectify the various phenomena that you see out there and then see them as something other than yourself. And that ability to see them as something other than yourself, it simply involves you drawing a mental circle around them and a mental circle around yourself, and then saying, oh, we are two different things and now we are facing each other. Okay, this is actually not what's happening, but our biological beings have evolved to process reality that way. So now we're walking around in a world where we objectify things, and we appear to be walking around in a world of objects. Okay, and our ability to do that, to objectify things around us, to see them as objects, is apparently what causes us to suffer. So how do we turn that off? So the key to that has to do with how these things arise. When you notice that things outside of your sphere, your little bubble, your self bubble, right, they also arise as their own phenomenon. You can see how they are also arising from the ultimate ground of being, just the same way you are. Okay, and one of the shocking things is that, like, well, these imaginary objects that I am supposedly affronted with out there, they're not so different from me. I'm also arising like they are from the ultimate ground of being. Just, we both come from the same place. These entities out there, okay? Now, when you walk around in the world, nothing in the world is actually a problem, okay? But the mind draws a circle around it out there and then labels it problem, or labels it benefit, labels it good, labels it bad, okay, labels it neutral, things like that. And these little bubbles with labels attached to them that are floating around all around us, those bubbles don't actually exist. Or you could say that they exist in the mind only, or in the world of Yetzirah only. Okay, we can talk about Yetzirah in a bit. It's Golden Dawn stuff. It's Kabbalah. So in the Golden Dawn and in the Kabbalah Magic book, uh, students of magic study Kabbalah, and of course in the Hermetic Kabbalah that is taught in the Golden Dawn, the central focus of all of the Kabbalistic stuff there is the Tree of Life. Okay, usually in this form. Tree of Life takes other forms. Okay, and what we have here is that supposedly we are down in the bottom there, and where it says Kingdom and Malkuth. That's supposedly where we are in the world of action. Okay, and then supposedly God is up there in the crown that says Kether at the very top. Okay, and what supposedly happens is that the universe unfolds from the top to the bottom. It sort of emanates outward from the top to the bottom. Okay, but what this really means is that you yourself have a Kether aspect, a crown aspect, and a kingdom aspect. So supposedly your physical body is Malkuth, but somehow in your subtlest of subtle bodies, you have a Kether aspect as well. You have a crown aspect. This whole process of the universe being generated into existence is happening not only with the universe, but also with you right now. Okay, so you have all of these various spheroth you have in your being somehow. They interact and unfold to create this entity that supposedly is you. Okay. And these various levels of the Tree of Life, you can see there are 10 spheres here, and these are very often seen as 10 different deities, or even you could say sub-deities, because Kabbalah tends to be monotheistic. And however, the pagan pantheons can be superimposed upon it, and you can see the various gods as the various gods as aspects of the one god, let's say, right? For example, that blue sphere there has said could be the sphere of Jupiter, if you're doing Greek gods, or Roman gods, that is. And the red sphere there is Gabura, the sphere of Mars, Roman god of war, okay, etc., etc. There are other spheres have those aspects to them. It doesn't mean that in the Golden Dawn we worship Roman deities. The deities are personifications that help us understand the universe and its from different perspectives. It helps if you study literature, because then if you understand how writers unpack very difficult explorations of themes through characterization. Pretty much, if they want to explore a theme, they need certain characters in order to personify different perspectives on that theme. Okay, supposedly the universe operates that way. It is exploded into manifestation, and all these different entities now exist within it, which see things from different perspectives. Okay, and in a very large scheme, there could be seen as a limited number of these deities. In this case, 10, because there are 10 spheres. Okay, you could conceivably make an unlimited number of deities and an unlimited number of perspectives. And the Kabbalistic scheme has 10 of them, 10 spheroth. But conceivably, there are even more, because there are actually 22 lines on this diagram, which could also be seen as perspectives. Okay. So working with symbols like this can be very interesting. You can roam around this image and then see the universe from different vantage points and from different levels of manifestation. Yeah, so Kabbalah is it's a complex thing to learn, but for somebody who's been learning about it for over 30 years, it seems strange to me to call it a complex system, because what you arrive at in the study of Kabbalah is quite simple. Yeah, the universe unpacks itself through emanations and various perspectives. This is not a very, I don't know, it's not a very difficult concept. It is at first, I understand that. Eventually it becomes second nature. And the tree of life also unfolds in 4 levels, according to the Golden Dawn. Atziluth is the world of pure potentiality, you could say. Beriah is the world of creation, when things begin to emerge as distinct, like light and darkness begin to form. And so you can see this versus that beginning to happen. And then Yetzirah is where a lot more interaction begins to happen. And here it's represented by not just light and dark, but various colors. And of course, in Asiya, where things get really complicated and tangled up inside each other, then that's the world of the physical world, okay? Atziluth is the world of pure potentiality. Beriah is the world of, it's a world of darkness. It's like a womb from which everything emerges, okay? And then the thing that emerges from the womb of Beriah is all these entities of Yetzirah, okay? Which could be seen as Jupiter, Mars, Venus, Mercury, goddess of the moon like Selene, and Apollo, maybe god of the sun, right? Okay, so and then Asiya is the world of action where you and I live. It's a world where things happen with physical bodies, supposedly physical bodies. All of these levels are very useful in the Golden Dawn system. Okay. And I think that one of the most important things for our discussion here is the level of Beriah, as we will soon see. Okay. And so when the student of magic learns about the tree of life and how things manifest into existence via the schema of the tree, they learn how things unfold. Okay. And conceivably, what we start out by learning about Asiya, because that's the physical world that we supposedly believe is real around us, right? And then eventually we move up the tree from Sphera to Sphera, okay, to the purple sphere of Yesod, sphere of the moon, let's say, and then we move on to the sphere of Mercury, that orange circle there, and then the sphere of Venus, the green circle, and the sphere of the sun, the yellow, or it should be gold circle, right? And the red sphere is Mars, the blue sphere is Jupiter, and then up against Beriah we have Saturn. Okay, Saturn is the outermost. Okay, and so beyond the orbit of Saturn, supposedly, according to the ancients, there was nothing but the unmanifest. Okay, or the pleroma, I think is what they called it. So with the of course, there was the sphere of the zodiac, which is sort of a barrier, but beyond the sphere of the zodiac was pure potentiality of Atziluth, which we could not see, except maybe we could see it as pinholes in the sky. In other words, the light of Atziluth, the light of pure potentiality, would shine forth through the fixed stars, supposedly. That's how the ancients saw it. Okay, and this model of the universe, you see down at the bottom, that's Earth. Earth was supposedly in the center of everything. Okay, this model of the universe of Kether or Atziluth on the outside, and then the various concentric spheres condensing inward to form the Earth in the center, that's still a reasonably good way of seeing how things manifest in the practice of magic. It's like a condensation process from unmanifestation to solidification, like into something happening and solid and real, or supposedly real. And that can be represented this way as well, a condensation process. But what you'll notice is that the condensation process doesn't just go from not dense at all to slightly dense, even more dense, more dense, more dense. You would think that's how it would work. But in the Golden Dawn scheme, it actually goes uh, through all through extremes. In other words, no substance at all, absolute substance or absolute light, absolute darkness, and then sort of a mixture of light and darkness in Yetzirah, and then a condensation into the world of action where you just have physical forms and all kinds of action happening. Okay, absolute light, absolute darkness, mingling of the two. Okay, which is like the world of the mind, a mingling of light and darkness where all kinds of weird stuff happens, which is the world of dreams, right? And then, of course, the world of Asiya in the center, which is the world of physical action and your physical life of running around, paying your bills, and doing things like that. Also, in this scheme, to understand this even better, you can view Asiya as your waking world. It's what you experience when you walk around in the world, going shopping, paying your taxes, going camping, going swimming. Um, then Yetzirah is the world of the mind and dreams, with like dreams at night, okay? But the world of dreams is always happening anyway. It's sort of, when you're in the waking world, it's in the background, it's still operating, okay? We are less and less aware of it as we've evolved into the modernistic psyche, but it's still there. It's still operating. Okay, and of course, when you practice magic, you can start to see it all the time. That the dream world is constantly up and running. You never stop dreaming. And then Beriah is the world of dreamless sleep, or what appears to be unconsciousness. Okay, so like if you have a healthy sleep cycle, every night you will have you plunge pretty much down right down into deep sleep, where there's no memory of anything supposedly happening for most of us anyway. Okay, and then eventually you can emerge back up as especially towards the end of the sleep cycle at night. You can emerge into the dream world, and then you can start to have dreams. You probably noticed that if you wake up early in the morning before your normal wake up time, you can see that, oh, I was dreaming. Okay, because the most vivid or yeah, the most vivid and colorful dreams happen later in the night before you wake up in the morning. They tend to happen around that time. Okay, so we tend to at night we tend to plunge very quickly into dreamless sleep, which seems to be absolute darkness. It's like death, right? And then you emerge from that into the world of dreams, and then eventually you come back out into the your waking world consciousness. Okay, and of course, beyond the world of dreamless sleep, beyond that darkness of dreamless sleep, there's a world of pure light, pure potentiality. Okay, you could say this whole circle represents how God created the universe. According to Kabbalah, he opened a hole within himself, and then he poured divine essence into that hole, and uh, basically that's an interaction of light and darkness, of Atziluth and Bria. The interaction of light and darkness, of Atziluth and Bria, it creates that gray space, the interaction of black and white, let's say, right? The Yetzirah, space of Yetzirah, and a space where the black and white get even more tangled up in very complex patterns is now Asiya in the center. Okay, so that's how manifestation supposedly happens, at least in one model or one way of looking at it. So, what does this have to do with the off switch of suffering? All right, so we've got this model. You've seen it before, probably in the previous video, okay? Or earlier in this video, actually. So you have the meditator inside his magic circle, and then he is facing something outside the magic circle, okay? And normally what happens here is that within the world of Yetzirah, which within the world of dreams or within the world of the mind, Okay, we create separation between things. There actually isn't any separation. Okay, but we create these bubbles around things. So we draw circles. Something is out there happening, and so I draw a circle around a portion of it to make an object out of it, so I can isolate it and then work with it in some way. Okay, and then I also assign a label to that. This is a good thing or this is a bad thing. Okay, in the process of doing that, I create suffering because I create objects of fear and objects of desire, which ultimately do not exist. The mind does that. And of course, if you catch yourself in the act of creating objects of fear and desire out there, then you are noticing the world of Yetzirah, the world of dreams, happening while you're awake. In fact, it's kind of dominating the waking world. We are walking around asleep, as the Buddha has said, and the thing about him, people ask him, what are you? Are you a god? And he simply said, no, I'm awake. And what does that mean? He kind of woke up from this world of separate objects. He woke up from a world of himself projecting positive and negative qualities out there into little thought bubbles over here and over there. He discovered that that world does not really exist in the physical world. It exists in the mind, in the world of Yetzirah. Okay, now he sort of he untangled the physical world from the world of Yetzirah. Okay, he untangled the world of the mind or dreams from the physical world. And in alchemy, this is referred to actually. You separate the subtle from the gross. Okay, so that you can recombine them to create something wonderful. Okay, and so for the enlightenment process, you learn that the separations that you create between things that are apparently happening out in the physical world, those separations and those qualities that you project upon those separations, those things are not real. Okay, at least not out in the world. They exist in your mind. Okay, they exist in the world of Yetzirah, but they do not exist in the world of Asiya. And so once you have separated those two things, you can see things clearly. You see what your mind is doing, but you also see what the physical world is doing, and they're not the same thing. Okay, and the cool thing is, like you might be noticing that in alchemy they say separate the subtle from the gross, and then eventually recombine them. Okay, what that means is then once you separate those two, the world of the mind from the world of physicality, you are free to reapply whatever bubbles and qualities you want, because now you're in control of the process. It's not a process that's automatically happening anymore. You have control of it, and you decide what's negative and what's positive. Okay, so might sound a bit scary at that point. You are then free to create new narratives and new ways of seeing the physical world that are not the way you've been conditioned to see it. Okay, and that's the recombining of the two again, the recombining of the mental world to the physical world. And only this time it's being done consciously. If you want to, you can keep them separate. And also the separation of the mind from the physical plane, so that you know that these are two different levels of activity. That's what is known as detachment, not cold-hearted detachment, but more like the ability to see things clearly. I see what the mind is doing, and I see what the physical world is doing, and I'm not confusing the two. Most of us walk around confused by that. We see something happening in the physical world, and we see what the mind is superimposing on it, and we think those superimposed qualities are really out there. That thing out there really is bad. It is out to get me. No, it's not necessarily what you think it is. And so if I were to tell you that there is no good and evil in the world of Yetzirah, you could probably see that that's true at this point. Now that I've unpacked the separation of the mind from the physical plane. Okay, anyway. And you can see that Asiya then exists in the outer world there. Asiya is the world of action. And Yetzirah is this bubble world where we create all these imaginary um, maps and territories of our experience. Okay, and then that dark space underneath, remember that all phenomena are arising from the ultimate ground of being. And the ultimate ground of being is pure potentiality. But in order for that to happen, there is a vibration between light and darkness, something like that, right? Between pure potentiality and actuality. That's intense fluctuation between the two, or even an agitation. So before God creates the universe, he gets agitated, or he vibrates. Okay, or the Egyptians would say he masturbates, and he masturbates the world into existence. Um, there's an agitation involved, or a restlessness, which is not easy to describe, of course, because it's not the ordinary restlessness of a physical body. But as you are sitting in your magic circle, then, and noticing that the qualities that you thought were out there in the world aren't really out there, they are qualities of the mind. You're beginning to notice that. You begin to see how that thing out there and you are arising from the ultimate ground of being. Okay. Now, as the magician, let's see if I can go to another one here. So the goal of the Golden Dawn Initiate is to get to sphere number 6. That's the sphere of beauty and Tifareth. Okay, so your goal is to get from sphere 10, and you pretty much go up through the purple sphere, which is 9, and you go through 8, and you go to 7, and then eventually you make it to the grade of Adeptus Minor, which is the grade of Tifareth. Okay, now Tifareth is normally seen as a beautiful sphere. Okay, it is the sphere of beauty. Okay, but it's also the sphere of the ego. Okay, because it's the place where the ego has potential to be sacrificed. Okay, because that's this the sphere number 6 is the sphere of the Christ consciousness. This is where the ego gets sacrificed so that the higher self can then emerge, or whatever, to take control of your life, so to speak. The higher self comes down, or the holy guardian angel comes down. And so for the non-initiate, sphere number 6, Tifareth, is the sphere of the ego and ego inflation. This is why magicians archetypally suffer from hubris, ego inflation. And that's the primary challenge. And of course, the magic of the Golden Dawn actually is designed to cause ego inflation. And if you've seen previous videos, you'll know that the lesser banishing ritual of the pentagram and the banishing ritual of the hexagram, they do that. Okay, and the mechanism by which they do that, what is it described in previous videos? Okay, the true nature of the LBRP is probably the best one to pretty much show you how that happens. So you'll notice that the magician is pretty much like the dot in the center of the circle. He sits in the center of the magic circle. Okay, and remember, sphere number 6 on the Tree of Life is the sphere of the sun, and the sun is represented by a circle with a dot in the center. Okay, and so yes, in the magic circle, the magician sits in the center. And as the unenlightened ego, he's the monster maker. Okay, he walks around in the world, stuff is happening around him, and he applies good and bad labels to the phenomena out there. Okay. Now, what happens is when something happens out there, the mind draws a circle around what's happening out there, draws a circle around me, myself over here, and now we are two separate things. I'm the good guy and it's the bad guy, like, because it's either enticing me and making me feel inadequate, so I need to go get something, or it is threatening me. This is a world of fear and desire we live in. Okay, so this being that exists in sphere number 6 is the ego, which compulsively makes monsters out of perfectly innocent phenomena out there. Stuff's just happening, but then it's drawing circles around those things happening, and it's creating qualities and labels to label those things out there as good and bad. Okay, so this little guy sitting here in the center of the magic circle is a monster maker. Okay. Now, in mythology, the world of Berea is the world of the dark goddess. The world of Berea is the world of darkness, right? And of chaos. And in Mesopotamian mythology, it is the goddess Tiamat, the many-headed goddess. She's a dragon, is a representation of the world of Berea, and she creates lots of monsters. Okay, and when one crosses past the level of Berea, that's where ego death technically happens. Okay, so you'll see that in the tree of life, sphere number 6 is well below Bina, which is sphere number 3. Okay, so sphere number 6, it really is the sphere of the ego. Okay, but it's the highest point where the ego is ready to be sacrificed. But to be sacrificed, it crosses the abyss, which exists at the level of sphere number 3. All right. Okay, so just to get to sphere 6 is not enough because we're already there. Okay, we already are the monster maker. Okay, but the thing that needs to be sacrificed there is the ego, let's say, because the ego is a thing that compulsively makes monsters. It can't help it. It sees good and bad qualities all around itself all the time. That automatic tendency needs to die. Okay, and so it can be sort of, let's say, sacrificed. It can actually go away, and you stop doing that. You stop judging things out there so much that the whole process, you begin to wake up and see that these qualities that you're projecting out there aren't real, or they only exist in the mind. They are real as Yetziradic creations, right? And of course, when that happens, we stop blaming the sphere of darkness for creating monsters all around us, because it's like, oh, I'm doing that. The sphere of the darkness up there is just creating all these phenomena. They aren't monsters. Of course, some of them don't exist in a way that allows my physical body to survive. And so I label them as evil because of that, right? So I make monsters out of them. But when in fact those phenomena are really quite innocent, they're just doing what they do, okay? And so once I wake up to that, it's like, oh, there's nothing good or bad really happening here except what the mind is creating, okay? I think it's Shakespeare who said there's nothing really out in the world that's good or bad, but thinking makes it so. When you wake up to that, then you begin to see how you are the monster maker, and you can then stop making monsters. Okay. Okay. That's not enough, though. So you can get a handle on your ability to create all these monsters out there, and you can become awake to that, and you can realize I can control that process. I decide which things are good and which things are bad. I don't compulsively do that anymore. Okay. I might even try for a while to see nothing is good or bad, right? That can really help. That not judge anything, to do a no judgment exercise. All right. Eventually, though, the ego will have to be sacrificed, and that is going all the way up to the crown together. That is where the off switch to suffering exists. And in this schema of the sitting in your magic circle, right? we can see the level of Bria as being deep down, down inside the psyche. Remember, the world of Bria is the world of dreamless sleep, where you are unconscious. It's like, might as well be dead if nothing's happening, right? Or nothing seems to be happening anyway. But what's actually happening down there is all these phenomena are being generated by the world of creation. Okay, but your mind can't function at that level, apparently. Well, at least not yet, anyway. And supposedly, in your ability to do ritual and to meditate, eventually you can reach down deep down into that world of darkness, into that world of seething creation. And somewhere down there is the off switch to suffering, and that is in absolute, down, way down below there, where that little fire is burning. It's like a little pilot light of suffering down there. That's where the agitation is happening. Things are being generated. Okay. Now, what we discover as we are working with our ability to see negative and positive qualities out there in the world, we begin to notice that we are being generated as well. Okay, so we seem to be making monsters out of everything out there, but then we begin to realize that no, there's something inherent to the deeper worlds that's creating me, the monster maker. What is creating the monster maker? What is generating this monster maker? That is the world of Bria, Absolute and Bria combined to make the monster maker. Okay. So when you realize that you're the monster maker and you can make any kinds of monsters you want, and you can do it in very constructive ways, it's not yet enough. The ability to shut off the monster maker entirely becomes increasingly important to you. Okay, so what happens is we have several levels of activity here. The average person runs around at the lowest level and they see stuff happening out there and they think it's all good and bad or neutral or whatever like that, right? This is good, that's bad, and those qualities actually exist out there in the world, okay? And that's on the level where you need to face your fears. And people like that will tell you you need to go out there and face your fears and work really hard and overcome the challenges, okay? That's the lowest world of the non-initiate. Eventually you get to a level where they say, okay, you need to turn around. It's not the things out there that you need to overcome. You need to turn around and look at the monster maker himself. This is when you start watching how things operate on the level of Yetzirah, the monster maker himself. It's like, oh, this entity that's creating all these negative and positive qualities, that's what I need to look at, right? And that becomes the work of the outer order student of the Golden Dawn. They start to look at this thing that's making all these good and bad qualities out there, and they can sort of shut off that ability to make good and bad qualities, okay, or take control of it. And they become a magician doing that, right? Then eventually, that's not enough. They make it to the level of Berea and Atziluth, where they begin to notice that, well, the monster maker himself is still kind of stuck, and he continuously is engaging in monster making. Okay, even though now I'm aware of it and I can sort of sidestep any problems that's creating, I have control, right? Eventually, you're going to want to shut off the monster maker entirely. Okay, so you realize then it's being generated down in a very deep, dark level of consciousness somewhere. And so the ability to reach down into that level somehow, where a level of consciousness where the things aren't really happening except pure potentiality and obscurity and darkness. Okay, to get at that level, it's not as difficult as it seems, because you can still work with alchemical substances, imaginal substances, to try and get at what that is. So to envision the world of Absolute and the world of Bria in terms of light and darkness can really help. That only goes so far because those worlds really aren't just light and darkness. Okay, you could also see them as wind and water, and that might be interesting to look at in some way, right? Hmm. Or sky and sea. Absolute is the sky and Bria is the sea, something like that. You can work with these various planes of existence through symbolic ways. Okay, uh, and and wonder of wonders, those deep levels of consciousness will often respond to your ritual attempts to get at them. And so using symbolism and things like that, you can actually get at those deep, dark substances down there, that world of pure potentiality and that world of darkness. You can reach down through the world of darkness and apparently turn off the switch. One of the problems is that the world of Bria is apparently stuck in the on mode. It's making all kinds of monster makers. It's making all kinds of egos, which are then in turn making monsters out of everything around it. Okay, so what you can do is go down deep into that realm that's creating you. It's your mother, right? You want to shut off your mother. She's creating you right now. You want to turn her off, shut her off, and she stops making you instantaneously, and you're gone. This doesn't mean you're dead. It just means the ego's dead. Okay, that bubble that exists there is no longer there. Okay, if you can click the off switch. Okay, now in the Eastern traditions, that state of mind, or whatever you want to call that, that state of being, is called nirvana. And nirvana, one of the best translations of it, as far as I know, is blown out. So it's almost like you're stooping down into the deepest level of consciousness, and you're just stooping down there, blowing out the flame, blowing out that little pilot light that's causing the agitation, which is causing the world of darkness to generate you. It's generating all kinds of egos, all kinds of monster makers, and you can shut it off. Okay. Now, conceivably, if you're functioning on the level of thought and on the level of language, you are living in a subject-object world, and that means that the Berea monster maker, the monster maker generator down there, is stuck in the on mode. Okay, when you disengage, when you click the off switch, then the world of language shuts off, because the world of language is dualistic. It has subjects and objects, and it pretty much sets up this idea of good me, big bad universe out there. Okay, as long as that duality is in place, supposedly then the monster maker generator of Bria is on, and it's creating ego, which is now confronting the world, confronting the world, confronting the world, right? And the world is confronting it. Oh my God, suffering. And to click the off switch down below shuts off the ego, shuts off the monster maker generator. Okay. And then there's no thought. Okay. And so you can have these experiences of just looking at the world where stuff's just is what it is. And there's no me anywhere in it. And there's no them, there's no us, and there's no them. It just is what it is. If possible. And the moment you say, hey, this is really cool, you start talking about it. That's when you say that over there is really cool, you're entering that subject-object world again, and that agitation has begun. The light and darkness are now like separated again, and that the switch of suffering turns back on again. Okay. Okay, so that is what the ultimate goal of the Hermetic magician is. We have this glyph of the tree of life, this one right here. um, there we go. Um, and so for the student of the Kabbalah Magic book, the goal is to get to Sphera number 6. You're rising up from 10 to number 6. Okay, this can also be seen as going deeper into consciousness or whatever, right? Um, and so, well, what about rising higher than that? And so, as you go higher than that, you eventually approach the off switch to suffering entirely. Okay, you're approaching the off switch to the thing that generates separation, which makes suffering possible. And lo and behold, when you do that, when you shut off that monster maker generator, you're still here, sort of. There's no you, though. There's just the body doesn't die. It's a misunderstanding to think that if you reach Kether, suddenly the hand of God comes down and claims you and you're gone. You disappear. Well, you do disappear, but only the imaginary you disappears. There never really was any you there to begin with. Okay, so it's a misunderstanding to say that once you reach these high spheres, that you can no longer be incarnate. That's not true. The ego can no longer be in existence. Okay, as the compulsion to make problems out of things that you experience vanishes. All right, so I hope this is clear enough. What I like about the schematic is that you can now have this, when you are working on in the temple space, let's say, where you have a magic circle, you can see that as, okay, I've arisen in this form, and then deeper down below, there's more to explore, okay? And in the outer order, it's mainly about getting control of the monster maker, okay? So you begin to understand how the monster maker works and get conscious about it. But really, the ultimate thing to go after is the monster maker generator, which is in Beriah. You want to go after the mother of the monster maker and then shut her off, okay? There really isn't an off switch like that you realize that, of course. I hope that that is really a metaphor, okay? But it represents a state of mind in which there's no longer a reified separation between you and everything else, okay? That's the ultimate goal of the work. And the highest grade on this tree of life is the grade of ipsissimus. So the grade of the number 6 there, that's the adeptus minor, the minor adept. Then there's the major adept and the adeptus exemptus and magister templi and things like that, right? And then the highest grade for sphere number 1 is ipsissimus, and that would be like basically like a Buddha. And yes, you can still supposedly be incarnate and be at that very high level on the tree, or very deep level of the tree, pretty much where you have control of the off switch. Whatever's generating ego can be shut off at will or blown out at will. All right. I hope that was clear. That was very mystical, wasn't it? I think next week I'll be talking about something more down to earth. I might be talking about cultural appropriation and magic. Maybe a controversial topic, I don't know. So we'll see. Until next time.